Hey,
Hey JJ,
how you doing?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm well too.
Good,
Been a good day so far with these conversations.
excellent. You have a really great lineup set up today.
I'm I'm pretty excited about it. Yeah.
Good,
Why
good.
don't you start us off by telling us who you are, where you are, and what you do?
Sure, sure. I want to start off by first off saying peace to the families of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and every other black victim of senseless police brutality. My
Thank
thoughts
you.
are with you at all times, but especially now. As for me, my name is Patrick Mendoza. I am a on-air radio personality for KGNU, broadcasting out of Boulder, Denver, and Fort Collins. I also help with outreach and community engagement for the station and try to get the public interested. We are a largely group of volunteers, small skeleton crew of staff members, but the bulk of it is volunteer work and help on and off air.
And I've been asking everybody this whole 12 weeks if you've gotten to listen to music recently, and if so, what you've been listening to.
I'm always listening to music, even more so in troubling times. We're lucky to have some really talented artists still putting out really great new music. Run the Jewels is always going to be our soundtrack to the revolution. Fiona Apple, the Queen, blessing us after 8 long years. There's still a lot of great releases still being put out. There's even more being put on the back burner. I've seen and heard of a lot of releases being put back, postponed, if you will, for a while. But then with the recent passings of some of the legends, Bill Withers, Little Richard, and Tony Allen, I'm always diving back into the hits. Little Richard was my dad's favorite musical artist. He's really the only musician I ever heard him rave about. So I've been playing Little Richard on my air for as long as I could. So the Saturday that he passed away, I spent the entire day watching old performances, queuing up records, and the like.
Yeah. Talk to me about how you've been passing the time during, let's just talk about the shutdown right now due to COVID. How has that changed your day to day, and how have you been filling your time?
As far as filling my time, I'm still one of the ones working. I am in alcohol distribution, and one could argue that we're busier than ever before. There are takeout and delivery methods. Some of these retail stores are getting creative the same way that any restaurant would. So they're still seeing pull through in sales on their alcoholic beverages. So my team is still just as busy, maybe even busier than ever before. From a studio standpoint, we're still trying to keep everybody informed with reliable news coverage and creative content, musical programming, even despite the challenges.
And this wasn't on any of the questions that I prepared you with, but if back in March, let's say the beginning of March, if you would have looked at your calendar for wherever we are now, first weekend of June, what would you have been doing or likely to have been doing right now were it not for all these circumstances?
Shows at Red Rocks. Lots of shows at Red Rocks. Actually, I think the biggest thing that that's been removed is the community outreach. KGNU participates in many cultural events and festivals around Denver, and the summertime is their biggest season. The third weekend in May is the Five Points Jazz Festival. This upcoming weekend, I believe, would be the Juneteenth Festival. There's the Black Arts Festival, and either late June or July. And I'm a staple at many of these Denver-based events. There's just as many up in Boulder, but I kind of stay down here in Denver, involved in this local community. So I'd be doing a lot of outreach engagement at the cultural events around town.
And I'd like to talk too about what's been going on in Denver more recently. protests, and I know I saw pictures of you on the internet out there with a broom helping to sweep up glass from, you know, broken storefront windows. Talk to me about what it means to you to be working at being anti-racist and to participate in what's going on.
I mean, it's important for me. It's been important for me for a long time. In 2015, after Freddie Gray's murder, we saw the civil unrest in Baltimore, and up until about 10 days ago, that was the closest it had hit to home for me. I mean, you and I both were regulars in Baltimore's music scene. It's only an hour away. You can easily make an afternoon trip or even a day trip out of it. So I reside 8 blocks away from the capital area of Denver and Colorado. So where these protests are happening is quite literally in my backyard. So this is an area of town that I spend a lot of time in. I spend more time at the library than anywhere else in town. So it was important for me to be able to help with those cleanup efforts and even participate in the peaceful protests, because it's the least I can do. It's my part as a Denverite and as just a general empathetic citizen, really. From a city standpoint, the first couple nights were a little tough. Walter was out on the Friday night's protest after dark. We would see kind of 2 types of protests. During the day, it was quite peaceful and organized, and the evening efforts were more chaotic and disorganized, and that's largely in part to the Denver Police Department. As you have seen all across the country, I saw a Twitter thread of 150 different incidents of attacks on journalists specifically from local police department. And that's a direct attack on the First Amendment. But it was quite hectic for the first couple nights. Walter was down there and got some really good tape from people. Saturday was our first official night of curfew, and the city didn't take to that at all. Largely, the uproar was concentrated to the capital area, but everyone just kind of started lighting off fireworks and kind of creating a little bit of minimal chaos throughout the city. We had already been on a shutdown for 11, 12 weeks as it is, and now we have this imparted curfew. It has since calmed down. All efforts have remained peaceful. There was some really solid legislation passed here in Colorado. A federal judge banned the use of tear gas from the police department. So the past handful of nights have really, really calmed down.
I hope that other places follow suit. It's been really hard to watch, and absolutely outrageous for the fact that because this is happening at protests and there are so many people around with cell phones, we're getting to see more of the police brutality as it's happening than we might otherwise.
Sure.
But if these are the things they're doing while they know they're being filmed, I mean, you mentioned journalists. There were a couple where people were reporting live on air with a camera pointed at the officers, and the officers came toward the camera, shooting, pointing their weapons at them.
Sure.
So it's been hard to watch, but like you, I feel an obligation to not look away.
You can't. I mean, last I believe it was Friday night. Friday night during the protests, every photojournalist in the city, whether it was print, radio, TV, every photojournalist in the city was fired upon from the police department, and nearly all of them are readily identifying themselves as the press. I saw a couple journalists put on like neon vests with press written on it, their logo sticker tacked to it, and nothing. They still were pushed into the fray. They were not given any type of leniency. They were not allowed behind the safe lines. They were pushed right into the mix, just as any civilian would have been. Yeah.
So attacks on civilians, press targeted, in some cities, medics. It's unconscionable, and it's hard to watch. On a lighter note, another thing that I hadn't put on the list of questions I sent you I want to talk about something that you and I did a couple months ago now. I'm bad at time, especially now, but there was a night you were doing something where you were listening to albums you either didn't know or hadn't spent time with, and
Yeah.
then doing a really succinct short review of them. And you asked me what my favorite Willie Nelson album was as part of that. And I told you Stardust. And then we ended up listening to it
At a
together at the
listening
same
party.
time from whatever 1,300, 1,500 miles away. Are you still doing those deep dives into records, or has that sort of gone by the wayside in light of everything that's going on?
I told myself in May that I might get it fired back up in June. But just about a week after that, I was presented with a promotion at work.
Oh.
And even amongst all of the busy schedule, I had to kind of find a way to successfully transition into higher responsibility. So unfortunately, that kind of fell by the wayside. I'm always looking into deep dives into records. So I have way more ideas than I'll ever execute. So it's still around. I still have some ideas like that. I really just I want to use it as a challenge to myself for writing prompts. I love musical criticism. I love musical review, but I want to kind of challenge myself to keep it to those kind of bite-size, kind of very succinct reviews and summarize it in just a handful of words or maybe 2 sentences or less.
And the one that we listened to together, you actually summarized as a haiku, which I found
Yes.
really delightful.
Yeah.
Extra delightful. So I can't recommend that highly enough to people. Pick an album and a friend who might appreciate it, and then both listen to it at the same time. That was a really nice evening for me to be able to do that with you. And then once we were done with that album, because we enjoyed it, we picked a couple more albums, and
one of which I purchased.
Yeah. We basically spent an evening together virtually in a way, and that's something that probably wouldn't have happened if it weren't for COVID and being stuck at home. I wouldn't have been home that night. So
no, I don't think so.
Yeah. So to wrap things up, can you tell me where people can go to find out more about what you do and how we can best support those things that you care about right now?
Sure. First and foremost, as KGNU.org is our website. You can follow along with our outreach engagement events. It has our entire show schedule. For anyone not familiar with KGNU, we are a community-based radio station that is about 60% musical programming and 40% independent news. We do subscribe to the Pacifico Network, so about 50% of that 40% is outsourced from them, and then the other half is in-house production, original news programming. And then the 60% of musical programming really sprawls the gamut of every genre. We have about 4 or 5 just really eclectic handful of genre shows that can really just broaden any spectrum. But then the majority of it is very style specific. And we have a handful of jazz shows. We have a couple blues shows. We have one of the longest hip hop running shows in the country on Sunday evenings. I particularly host the Soul, Funk, and R&B show on Friday nights. So you can find our show schedule, our playlists, and you can even listen along live from KGNU.org. There is a donate button. We are supported from the community, both financially and as an audience. So you can always help us fight the good fight by donating to us. If KGNU is not in your market, then really I just suggest to anyone to find any local public media outlet. Hal from XPN was just on before me. I can't recommend them enough. If the news is more your thing, NPR, WBEZ in Chicago, WNYC in New York, any of these folks can really make use of your support, and support especially your financial contribution, even more so now than ever before. We're already on a strained budget before. Now with underwriting coming to a decrease, I'm not out there engaged with the public, so I can't get those people interested in donating. So we need your financial support more now than ever. And really, no matter where it is, just find a media outlet that you trust, rely on, and support. As for me, you can find me afterfm.com/Patrick Mendoza. All of my shows for the past, I think, 2 to 3 years, I think they capped at 3 years, are archived. You can follow along with me here on Instagram and Twitter, DJ Dozer. But really, I can't say this enough. Support your local news.
Yeah, upvote for that. I also noticed under Little Richard there's Prince, and it's Prince's birthday today.
It is Prince's birthday, so happy birthday.
Happy Prince's birthday, everybody.
Yes, I placed him beside us for the day. Also, shout outs to John McCauley. He could not make it here today. A very early birthday wish to, man, my favorite songwriter out there right now.
Well, you know, that's a good segue. I'm going to be speaking next at 2 p.m. Eastern to Tu Yet Yen, who is Deer Tick's tour manager.
Yeah.
And then at 3 o'clock to Lindsay and Pete from Sign of the Wagon, and at 4 o'clock to Jay Sweet from the Newport Folk Festival. This is the last Sunday I'm doing these. I'm really excited that you got to participate in one of them.
Likewise.
And we'll share the video then. Is there anything we didn't cover that you'd like to say or to mention before we go?
Yeah, what you were checking in on live streams. What are some of the live streams that you have been checking out?
Oh, well, I've watched so many Leo DeSanto live stream performances, which will come as no surprise to anyone.
Sure.
His band, Vinegar Creek Constituency, is probably the band I see the most in a given year. So Leo has a nice setup in his home studio for live streaming. I got to do a private one back in March with Joe Pug, and I got to invite some friends to that, a couple of whom weren't familiar with his music. So that was fun. You know, my whole thing is always introducing people to their next favorite band, and I know you're really good at that too. So, and then a couple of really great telethons, and I've been happening upon and sometimes scheduling to be there for Joshua Headley's live stream performances. He does a lot of them all request, playing country songs, and man, they're a blast. He has such a beautiful voice.
Yeah, cool.
So those are the ones that come to mind. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, no worries.
And I think that's it. So thanks again for taking the time.
Yeah.
And for doing what you do. And I hope I get to see you in person this summer still.
Yeah. I had plans to come in August. Fish's show is canceled, but my family and friends are still there. So, all right. Well, I'll check in with you if I am able to make it out.
Great.
Otherwise, keep fighting the good fight, GJ.
You too. Stay safe.
You as well. Bye.
Bye.